Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of the League NBA podcast. I'm your host, Roberto, here with.
And I am Carlos, back at it again.
So, we're back, episode 3. Before we get started, how are you doing, Carlos?
I'm doing pretty well. Have the next 2 weeks off. Don't have any school to worry about. And I'm excited for Christmas, not because of the presents, but because it's a full slate of NBA games to watch.
That's cool, man. How am I doing? I'm doing okay. I am off from work from Wednesday through Sunday, so just plan on enjoying the holidays with family and, having a good time. I think this might be our last episode of the year, since we'll see how next week works. But other than that, there's not much league updates on my side. Just we had an All-Star tournament, but if I'm being honest, I really don't care much about the All-Star tournament, especially with the format they have nowadays. I don't. Okay, wait. Super quick tangent. What is an All-Star tournament with the NBA? Just give me like a 20-second just rundown.
So the All-Star tournament with the NBA pretty much is all pretty much fan voted. So the fans vote for like their favorite players to play like in a tournament, and they all get to play with each other. Just pretty much East versus West. But nowadays they do captain, so like LeBron chooses a team, and like Giannis chooses another team, and they just pick them like an old school PE recess,
Mhm.
So just like a fun 5-on-5 type of game.
So we kind of have like that. It's fan pick too, but a lot of players decline to attend. So you end up with your third or fourth pick. And not only that, but the tournament's also joined by a lot of like streamers that like they're very entertaining, but they're not very good at the game. And if you're not like super into entertaining streamers like me, then you probably don't enjoy All-Stars as much. But that's what happened this past week. But so today's episode, we're gonna talk about the top 20 list of players to watch for the 2021 season for both League of Legends and the NBA. Before we start going through our player choices, Carlos, do you want to kind of explain what the positions are for NBA basketball?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that because my list consists of players of many positions. So for people who are not familiar with basketball, there are 5 positions. There is center, power forward, small forward, point guard, and shooting guard. So it's 5 versus 5 players. And I'm going to go through each of the positions and explain to you what each of them does. So the first position to explain is the center, pretty much the easiest one to explain. Pretty much the center is like the tallest player on your team. So think of like your Shaquille O'Neal, your Wilt Chamberlain, your Bill Russell, like those tallest players. Those are the people who are going to be nearest to the basket and scoring all those close shots. Second position to explain is power forward. So power forward is kind of like the center, but the power forward can shoot from mid range or from 3-point land, and they defend more versatile players. So power forwards, think of your Tim Duncans, your Anthony Davises. Small forwards, same thing. They're kind of like the power forward, but they defend small and large players. They roam all over the court. So think of your Larry Birds, your LeBron James. Those are typically your small forwards. Next position to explain is a shooting guard. So the shooting guard is pretty much your team's best shooter, and they can make 3-point shots and space the floor pretty well. So shooting guard, think of your Michael Jordans, your Kobe Bryants, Dwayne Wade. Those are typically the best shooting guards of all time. And then the most important position, in my opinion, is the point guard. So the point guard runs the offense, and is usually the best dribbler and passer in the team. So with this, think of your Chris Pauls, your Steve Nashes, your Magic Johnson. This is a person who facilitates the offense and makes sure the team is positioned well to pretty much score the ball and to run plays. So those are pretty much the 5 positions for the NBA.
Is just quick question, just super curious. Is there a position that is better played by shorter dudes or no?
Yeah, so point guards are usually like the shortest people on the team. So you know how centers are usually the tallest. Well, point guards are usually like the shortest people because they're not really close to the basket that much. They're just passing the ball or driving towards the basket to pretty much get the defense towards them. So the point guard could pass it to a 3-point shooter away from the basket. So the point guards are usually like 6'4", 6'3", people who are a lot shorter, but in recent history times, we've seen like small forwards and power forwards actually take the position of point guard. So LeBron has been point guard recently. We've seen Kevin Durant take some point guard duties as well. So we're seeing like an evolution of the game now where the point guard position may not necessarily be the smallest player in the team, but it may be like the team's best facilitator, the best passer now. So we'll see how that changes throughout this year.
That's cool. It's kind of interesting to hear that such an old sport can still kind of evolve, even so far into the sport's history. But with that being said,
Roberto. Yeah, I was like wondering, like when you were talking about the players last week, you said a lot of the teams last week. I mean, I was wondering like what each position did in League of Legends. So can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I think I've kind of hopped in without explaining much. I think I assumed the people kind of would know basics, but that's kind of unfair and just a dumb assumption to make. So, okay, before we continue, I'm going to talk about like League. So, League is what you call a MOBA, a multi-online battle arena. Essentially, there's two teams with two bases, and the goal of the game is to explode their team's base. So the game starts, and both teams had a minion spawn into the three different lanes, which is top lane, mid lane, and bot lane. You kill the enemy team's minions for gold. Gold gives you experience, and like I said, gold, and you can buy items. And the more gold you have, the better items, the more experience, which can make you stronger. You fight around, so turrets. There's turrets in between you and the base, and you gotta destroy those turrets to get to the base. There's neutral objectives such as what they call Baron Nashor and the Dragon, which gives you what they call neutral buffs. So they're like buffs to make you stronger. And then you also have an extra role called the Jungler, which is a player that goes and helps lanes by either ganking, which is what ganking means, that you show up to a lane trying to kill the enemy's laner, or counter jungling, which is when you go into the other enemy's jungle and try to kill their other jungler, or just providing vision. There's a lot of big macro stuff, and I don't want to get too into it right now because I just want to give the generic, understanding of the game. So that's pretty much it. 5 lanes, 3 lanes, 5 players, and you want to explore your team's nexus. So now going into roles, top lane usually has one player, usually has a fighter or a tank. The jungle, same, usually a tank, a fighter, traditionally. Mid lane is usually a mage, so think of like a wizard, that makes sense, or something like that. Sometimes assassins. Bot lane has 2 players, AD carry, which are like they're usually people with guns. Honestly, that's like the best way to put it. Guns, and their range, but they're really weak early game, and as they get more items and more experience, they become a lot stronger. So to get them to late game, they have a support, which is usually either a tank, a mage. It's pretty much it, and or an enchanter, which is kind of a mage. And that support makes sure that the AD carry, which is like the other bot lane, the gun person, doesn't die. Can get through lane. So those are pretty much the roles. And historically, mid lane, the one with the mages, assassins, has been probably the most impactful, followed by like jungle, and then support, and then late game AD carry can be very impactful. And traditionally, people say top lane is kind of like not very impactful, but they have done some changes to try to make it more impactful, and we'll see how the 2021 season kind of plays into that. I don't know if that made it clear. You have any questions about kind of what I said?
So, like, what position would you say like is like the leader or like the facilitator who organizes everything within the team? If there's any.
So before, back in the day, look, I feel like 5, 6 years ago, there would be like one player that would say, I'm the shot caller, and people would follow whatever this player said. But as the game has progressed, the game has evolved to a point where kind of everyone shot calls. And what I mean by that is like teams have gotten better at playing around their strengths. So if they have a champion that is very strong early game, they'll play around that player and what the player wants to do. And the player will be like, hey, I'm in a position to contest the neutral objective, or I'm in a position to kill the enemy. So it's become more of a team sport, not really like a single person. But if anything, junglers and supports are the ones that dictate most of the game traditionally. You still kind of see that they really kind of dictate and set up most of the plays. So most of the time they're the ones making the calls, whereas like the other roles kind of like do follow-up engage or just damage. So yeah.
Oh yeah, so pretty much like so pretty much there's 5 players and you each have their defined roles, and they pretty much like it's like a team sport nowadays. Pretty much like how NBA before it was like mostly like the point guard who would dictate the offense. Nowadays like mostly like everyone gets to like have a role, say in what their role is. So yeah, I see the similarities there.
When the game first started, there was no assigned roles. People just went whenever they wanted, and people look back and they think about how much fun it was when no one knew anything. But now it's kind of been figured out that this is the best way to play the game. People have tried like playing with like 2 people top, 1 bot, and see how that works out. But I think they get mixed results, and it seems like having 2 people bot most of the time is the most efficient way to play the game, because Dragon is in the bot side of the map, which is one of the neutral objectives I talked about. And I can go into more detail about League later on, but I think for now, that's kind of a very basic understanding to anyone, that doesn't know what League is, and it's a really fun game to watch, especially if you kind of know what's going on. But even if you don't know what's going on, it's still really fun to watch like the fights and just play out. And the casters do a really good job at kind of walking you through what's going on. Okay.
Yeah. So before we get into our top 20 list, I just want to disclaim this is not my top 20 players currently. So I excluded the top 5 MVP runners up from last year. So my list will not have LeBron James, Giannis, Luka, Kawhi, or any of those guys, because I just want to like get some players who like pretty much like the casual viewer will not really necessarily know about, just to get them interested in different teams. So yeah, so I know LeBron, Kawhi, Giannis, and Luka. They are pretty much the top 4 players, and James Harden as well. They are the top 5 players in the NBA, and I pretty much there's nothing to say about them. They're pretty much going to be like dominant in their sport, in their positions, and I wanted to shed light on some pretty much players that really don't get the spotlight that much. So yeah, so if you see this list and hate on the comments, I know I got some haters on there in the comments already, but yeah, just know that this list is top players to keep an eye on for myself. So
okay, so from my side, from my side, it's kind of like, so there are some people that are narrative, but I think for mine, I'm kind of looking at it as mine has a few people that are actually. I'll kind of talk about each one individually when I get to it, and I'll say if it's a narrative or if it's like if I think like it's like performance based, if that makes sense. So, because some of my picks have been like just because of the narrative behind the player, and I kind of explain that as I go more into it. But yeah, I think for sure my list isn't necessarily like the top 20 best players. It's more of like the top 20. I guess it kind of matches you. Now that I kind of worded out loud, it kind of does match kind of what you're saying. Because if I did like top 20 from like best to worst, then you would just have like the top 3 teams, just back to back, and a bunch of other people sprinkled in. So yeah, kind of similar to you. So I don't know if you want to kick us off, or you have any more comments you want to make.
Yeah, pretty much. I wanted to include as much teams as I can, so I included like one player from at least one team. Otherwise, I would just pretty much be talking about the top 3 or 4 teams. So I just wanted to spare it out as much as I could. And if you guys in the comments are thinking that I'm missing a player, be sure to add on to it and make sure you give me feedback as well, because I'm just a guy in my bedroom just talking about NBA, but you guys also have an opinion. So yeah, I'll start this off.
If you have an opinion about my league rankings, honestly, keep it to yourself, because I am right and I just know more than you. Just kidding. Just kidding. You can go ahead, Carlos.
All right. So hopefully the display is up there, and let's begin. So We're starting from the bottom right here. So the number 20 player to keep an eye on is Karl Anthony Towns. So Karl Anthony Towns, Minnesota Timberwolves. He led the Wolves to their first playoff appearance in 2018 since 04. And I'm just curious to see how he and D'Angelo Russell pretty much get along and establish himself in the West. They got a new rookie, Anthony Edwards, and Anthony Edwards could make an impact, but I don't think so. Not yet this year. Karl Anthony Towns, he could establish himself as a top 3 center with his post game and his 3-point shooting. So I'm excited to see.
Okay, well, my turn. So my number 20th player is Revenge. There's just I think what's really interesting about this player is, okay, this guy is probably in the bottom, probably 10 players of the whole league, and there's around 50 players. But the reason why I have him on my list is because I think he's an interesting player to keep an eye on. Because so this player has been at the top of the ladder for solo queue. So something I need to talk to you real quick about is solo queue. Solo queue is kind of like the ladder in the client of the game. So in the game, you can go on the ladder of the top ranked players. Does it make sense, Carlos?
Yeah.
And he's always at the top. He's been at the top for the past 3 or 4 years. And people have debated about the success from being a top ranked player and how you perform in the pro league. So think of it like being like the best pickup player there is, but maybe not performing well at the NBA level. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we have a lot of pro players that aren't good at like the pickup, solo queue ladder, but they're very good at the at the actual professional scene. And this player, stopped pursuing pro league for a while. He was going to go to med school, decided not to pursue that, and decided to instead, pursue being a pro league player. He's been in the academies team for a year or 2 now, and he didn't do too hot. So people have been giving it a lot of flack, this pickup. But I think if he can do well, I think it'll encourage more people to look at the ladder and maybe pick up, people that do well in the solo queue ladder. But traditionally, a lot of times, what makes you good in solo queue doesn't necessarily make you good in the pro scene. So I think it's just an interesting story to look at. We'll see how he does. I don't think he'll do well. I think there's too many intangibles that you get by playing in a 5v5 atmosphere that you don't get by playing alone. It's a lot different when you have to like just play alone. You can carry the game on your own, but when you play against a team of coordinated people, there's so much more to it, So we'll see if he can do it, but that's my 20th player. Oh, sorry. He's a top lane person playing for give me a second. I have it here. He just switched teams, so I need to I believe it's Dignitas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dignitas.
And Dignitas was a team that was a team he talked about a lot last week as well.
Yeah, this team is probably gonna. So not Dignitas, my bad. Immortals, not Dignitas, my bad. I just found it. Yeah, so it's gonna be Immortals. I don't think this team looks very good. I think they'll probably be at the bottom, which I know we said we keep it short for the bottom players, but I just feel bad for some of these players that could potentially be good, but they get put into environments that are meant to fail. And it's like infuriating because it's like, I feel like, okay, so not to dox myself, but I'm technically a scientist, okay? And when you run experiments, you have control so you can see what, an actual accurate result is supposed to be. But when I see his team, he's surrounded by Cersei, which is coming from not a good place. Insanity, who's a rookie millionaire. Rays and Destiny, who were good in a minor region and got imported to North America. And I said we keep it short. I promise I want to keep it short, but it's infuriating for me as a viewer because I would like to see him in a more competitive team. But, to play devil's advocate, there's a lot of players that do well in bad teams. And maybe this could be a test. And actually, there's a player that I'm going to highlight later that. But yeah, okay, that's pretty much it. Just the revenge story. Go on, tell us.
All right. Speaking of infuriating, let's go to number 19. This is Trey Young from the Atlanta Hawks. This is a very controversial pick because people really think that this guy is a player who puts up stats on a bad team. So pretty much kind of what you're talking about, Roberto. But I think this guy is really legit. He gets a lot of flack because He shoots a lot of 3-pointers. Doesn't play that much defense, but I think that Atlanta really is going to be a really fun team to watch, especially with the additions of Gallinari, with the additions of Rondo, and I think Trey Young. It sucks because he was in the same draft class as Luka Doncic, who could be an all-time great, and people always seem to compare Trey Young to Luka, which is really unfair because I think Trey Young is going to be a sensational player. I think he will finish top 10 in three-point shooting of all time. And I think Atlanta needs a player like this. They have waited so long for a playoff contender. And I think Trey Young revitalizes the city so much and brings them so much hope and joy. And I really hope that Atlanta can push for a top 8 seed and make their fans proud.
Okay. Well, my number 19 player is Niles. So what's like I said, this player is also probably going to be a bottom tier player. Okay, I think he'll probably be last place probably, but I guess my hope is that he does well. He's the first player, to my knowledge and my research, that is going from collegiate scene to the professional scene. And to explain to you what the levels of league look like, so usually professional scene, and then there's a B league. And then you have amateur leagues, so just like amateur tournaments, and then you have the collegiate scene. And so it's like pretty far removed. And it's not like the NBA where you can look at the college scene and say like, oh, that player is really good. He will do good in the NBA. I wouldn't say that confidently. So, we'll see. I think he used to play for Maribel University. He went there for the full ride to play League of Legends. I don't know. I don't really understand, the collegiate scene that well. But I think if the collegiate scene becomes more lucrative, you could see a lot more players maybe take it more seriously and maybe be able to go to college and, play league at the same time and just maybe play it safer to see if they can succeed at that level. But that's my number 19, Niles. Okay, who's playing for Golden Gardens in the top lane too.
All right, awesome. All right, number 18, we have Jrue Holiday from the now Milwaukee Bucks. He was a New Orleans Pelican last year, and he was a big trade which happened last month that pretty much ensured that Giannis will stay in Milwaukee for those 5 years. Jrue Holiday plays one of the best defensive positions in the league, and he, along with Giannis and Middleton, form a formidable big three in the East that could compete for a top 2 seed. And I think Giannis, along with Jrue Holiday here, I think their chemistry right off the bat is going to be really well. They're going to start off to a really strong record because I know Giannis is motivated to get a third straight MVP. And I know Jrue Holiday is motivated to get a bigger contract after this season. So I think Jrue Holiday is my 18th player to be watching for because, he did pretty well in New Orleans, and he meshed pretty well with Lonzo Ball and Zion Williamson, but he just needs to be in a playoff contender, and I think his skills will further thrive in that environment.
Okay. My number 18 player is Palafox. So I guess, I feel like I keep saying this. This is not a list of the top 20 players in the region. I think what makes this play interesting to watch is that he was the first place mid laner for the B League, the Academy League for Cloud9, and he has success the past for the 2 tournaments last year. And I think if he can join the professional league, which he did this year under I believe it's Dignitas. Give me a second. I think all these players just switch places. So not Dignitas. Sorry, it's gonna be. Give me a second. Why can't I find it? Oh, FlyQuest. So with FlyQuest, and if he can look good in the league, I think it will encourage more teams to not only use more North American players, because this is actually a North American mid laner. And like I mentioned last episode, at the beginning of last year, we only had 1 North American mid laner. I think this year we went up to like 5 or 4, I think. And if he can compete, it will validate picking up from the B League, which is what the whole B League's purpose is, to develop players instead of just importing, without thinking. And it will validate North American players, especially North American mid laners. which is a role that's been dominated by imports, like I mentioned last episode. So I hope, I think he'll do well. He popped off last year in the B League, and hopefully he can translate some of that success over to the main league. And he has a team that actually looks pretty good. I feel like he actually is one of the few players that has the tools to succeed, like one of some of the weaker players that has tools to succeed, and hopefully he can. So that's my number 18 pick.
Okay, all right. So let's go to number 17. We have Kristaps Porzingis, forward/center for the Dallas Mavericks. This guy's really controversial because he could be an all-time great player in his position, but unfortunately, he always gets injured at the end of the year by the playoffs, and the Dallas Mavericks will go as far as Kristaps Porzingis' health goes. So Luka can't do everything by himself. He is pretty much like the early LeBron, like with the Cavaliers. Like he'll take the team to the finals or to the Western Finals, but they will not win unless we get a healthy Porzingis and a healthy Dallas Mavericks team. And there's a reason why Mark Cuban traded for Kristaps, because he realizes his all-time potential. He could. It just frustrates me a lot because last year during the playoffs, they were neck and neck with the Clippers. The Mavericks were pretty much right there with them, and Kristaps would get injured or he would get ejected with foul trouble, or with I don't know. It's just something about Kristaps that like there's so much potential in him, and yet the Mavericks don't go far enough. And in my list last week, I explained that I have the Mavericks as a top 3 team, with the expectation that Kristaps and Luka stay healthy. And I don't know. I just hope that the Mavericks do well and Kristaps lives to that potential.
So my number 17 is this player called Ignore. He's a support player for Evil Geniuses. So this dude has been kind of all over the place. He played for Korea, didn't do too hot, went over to Europe, played for this team called Misfits, and he went toe-to-toe all 5 games against SKT, which is one of the best Korean teams in the world at the time. And I think why he's a player to watch is because he is a very explosive player. And he's paired up with 2 very explosive players in his team, Jisuke in the mid lane and Svenskar in the top and the jungle. And this could go both. I feel like this team is going to be a boom or bust, and I think he's going to rely heavily on him and his creativity. He's a player that is very good at innovating picks, and he kind of became famous because when everybody was picking enchanters in the bot lane, he was able to find some picks that were tanks that were really good into the enchanters. So he broke the meta. And I think now, this is kind of getting a little bit too detailed, but the game is technically revamped a lot of the items. So there's a lot of new things and new stuff to figure out. So I think if one of the players that can really figure this out and maybe exploit stuff that not other people are willing to take risk with is him. And I am excited to watch him. That's my number 17.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 16, we got that man from Miami, Jimmy Butler, a.k.a. Jimmy Buckets. This man earned a lot of respect from me because he went toe-to-toe against my Lakers in the NBA Finals. And let me tell you, he got me so mad and frustrated when he kept making shots in Game 5, and I was so angry. But this man pretty much left a bad situation in Philadelphia, Minnesota, to form his own team in Miami and pretty much create his own culture with the type of coach and type of players that he wanted to play with, and took out the number 1 seed in the East and the number 3 seed in the East as a 5 seed to go all the way to the NBA Finals. And I think Jimmy Butler, oh man, I love this guy. I love his tenacity. I love his attitude. He is like a first to the gym type of player. Reminds me a lot of like a Kobe mentality, like would be there at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And I'm just excited to see how he does with Miami this year. And they could repeat their success of last year of going to the NBA Finals. They're going to be motivated, obviously, after that loss to repeat as Eastern champions to show the rest of the East that they weren't a fluke, that they were not just a bubble miracle. And I hope, for the sake of Miami fans, which I know a lot of you in the comments are a lot of Miami fans, I hope the Miami Heat are contenders next year. And Jimmy Butler, keep an eye on him, because no matter what, no matter how many times you watch him, he will give 100% of his effort in those teams.
So, number 16 for me is this guy named FBI, aka FBI Open Up. Yeah. So this guy unfortunately didn't make it to Worlds last year, but he was kind of acknowledged as the best bot laner last year, the best AD carry, and just kind of for some reference, he had the highest goal difference at 10 minutes for AD carry. That means he was farming better, getting turrets better than the other AD carries in the league. So he led the league in AD carries for that. But he also led the league as a whole out of all players as damage per minute. And with Doublelift leaving the scene, which has been one of the most dominant players, one of the most dominant bot lane players, there's gonna be a vacuum for power. Okay, we're gonna have a Game of Thrones, House of Cards up in here, and this player specifically, if he can have a performance and dominance as he did last year, I think with the upgrade he got in the top lane with Someday, and this team his team is one of the teams that are like dark horses for me that could win the whole thing. And by dark horse, I mean like a team that could win the whole thing, but isn't a favorite for my definition. Mm-hmm. That's my number 16.
All right, down to number 15, the new man in Houston, John Wall. He just got traded from Washington, coming off an Achilles injury, coming off disappointing seasons in Washington, and now he's reunited with his old college teammate Boogie Cousins. And currently the Rockets are a mess right now because they don't know whether or not they're going to trade Harden or not. But for sure, John Wall will be a Rocket. And yeah, it's going to be, I don't know. It's one of those teams where, like, yeah, this would have been a team to really be watching out for like 5 years ago when John Wall and Boogie were both in their primes. And now it's like 2020, 2021, should I say. It's going to be kind of sad because, like, it's like these players were so much fun to watch during their college days, during their rookie years. And I hope he stays in the league. I hope he continues to do well. And honestly, Houston, they couldn't be I watched a couple of their preseason games last week, and they looked pretty well against those opponents. And they space the floor pretty well, and Boogie and John Wall do add that dimension for Harden if he does chooses to stay to mix up the offense a bit. But yeah, I hope John Wall does well.
So for me, 15 is a bot lane player tactical for Team Liquid. So this player is last year replaced one of the all-time greats, Doublelift, and is in the team that Doublelift left. He performed above expectations, and a huge reason why Team Liquid went from being, I think, 9th in the league to 1st in the regular season. And third out playoffs, he performed really well group stage. One of the reasons why Team Liquid was able to go 1-1 against a lot of different teams at Worlds. And the reason why I think he's important to highlight is because a lot of rookies tend to have like an explosive season when they come out the gate. But then for some reason, either they get complacent or maybe they get figured out. The following season, they don't have a showing as strong. I don't know if that's something that the NBA kind of sees as well, but that's something that in the league scene, I feel like rookies a lot of times just don't stand the test of time. So yeah, he has a team. His team is a team of all-stars. Like this guy has all the way in the world because his teammates are probably the number 1 or 2 in their role respectively. So I have a lot of faith in this player. He's shown a lot of like just fire, which you don't see in rookies. A lot of times rookies are kind of scared of being aggressive because they don't want to die too much. But he was one of the players that kind of played forward, played aggressively, and hopefully we can keep seeing that kind of aggression from him.
All right. At number 14, we have Lamelo Ball, a.k.a. Lonzo Ball's younger, for everyone out there who is a Lonzo fan. What can I say? Lamelo Ball, clip this, edit this, whatever. But I guarantee you, Lamelo Ball will be the Rookie of the Year of the 2021 season. He is sensational. I love the way he plays. I love the way he is passing the ball. And he's actually making the Charlotte Hornets watchable. The Charlotte Hornets, former Bobcats, have been one of those teams that people always hate to watch because they're so boring. There's nothing interesting about them. I know it's Michael Jordan's team, but they needed some flash injected into their system, and I love the way Lamelo Ball is thriving in that team right now. And like I said, Lamelo Ball will win Rookie of the Year. He will be one of the best players as a rookie. I think he might be better than his brother. But keep an eye on that. I love, aka say it. I'm gonna say it louder for the mic for all the people in the comments. I love Lamelo Ball for Rookie of the Year.
Okay. And before I continue, I just want to tell our producer, just making sure that you know that you're showing the right page. My first page was my 1 through 10. You're aware of that, right, Eric? Yes. Okay. Good. Sorry, guys. Okay, so my 14th is gonna be Closer, who's playing for 100 Thieves. He's a Turkish import that popped off last year with Golden Guardians. He's a jungler, and he's like a big reason why Golden Guardians was regarded as the third, fourth, / fifth best team in the league. And also, he's going to be playing with FBI, who I mentioned earlier, and he got second place on most kills in the regular season, second in experience lead out of the junglers. He's a carry jungler, and with the addition of Someday, which is a huge upgrade in the top lane, his team can be a contender to win it all. Like I said, dark horse. The reason why I want to highlight him is because a lot of times I feel like a lot of these imports, like, they'll have like a really good like breakout performance, and it's all about the test of time for me. And I really hope he can kind of keep being consistent and keep showing the same performance. A lot of times, carry junglers, they get figured out, and then they're able to pop off the way they used to. And I think if he can keep a similar level of dominance as he did last split, he, along with Someday, FBI, Damonte, and Huki, are definitely my dark horse to win it all.
Okay, so number 13, we have Pascal Siakam from the Toronto Raptors. 2019, I thought Pascal Siakam was incredible when he and Kawhi Leonard were pretty much leading the team to their first NBA title as a franchise. And last year during the bubble, he had a really disappointing postseason. Really came up short during Game 7 and throughout pretty much the whole series. And I thought he was gonna really represent Toronto in the NBA Finals. And I expect a bounce back season from him. I think that he is an incredible talent, along with Nick Nurse, OG Anunoby, and all those gritty veterans that Toronto signed with Kyle Lowry. They're good, even though they're not playing in Toronto this year. Those players still have the heart of a champion. They want to pretty much show the East that their title was not a fluke in 2019. And I know Pascal wants redemption as well, because especially against how he performed against Boston, he knows he could have done better. That series could have gone back and forth if he just made a couple shots or defended one player. And I think Pascal is our number 13 player to watch, because I saw him as an not all-time, but like top 10 talent the year before. And I think he'll be similar to that stature this year.
So my 13th player to watch is Licorice over in the top lane. He's playing with FlyQuest. And last year, he led the league in kills. So most kills in the league for the regular season. He was by far regarded as the best top laner. He led the league with first bloods. And the reason why I think he's important to watch is this player, I think, is heavily underrated because he kind of had a weak ending to his split. He got kind of wronged by his team. It's not really the right word to use, but a lot of times people talk about players not having loyalty for their teams. This instance, it was more about the team not having loyalty with this player. They sold him to make enough money to be able to buy perks in the mid lane, and he's gonna be over at FlyQuest. and he's gonna be playing with Jose Dioto, which is like a Latin America import. He's also gonna be playing with Paula Fox, who I mentioned earlier, and Johnson and Diamond. And the reason why I think he is going to be an important player to watch is because he, like I said, he's really good, and he's being reunited with Diamond. He used to play with him back, well, a little bit, kind of, not really. He played with him over at Cloud9. So Cloud9 sold Palafox, Diamond, and Licorice to this team. So they do have some kind of existing synergy. And he was part of the team that was the best performing North American team at Worlds. They got to semifinals, and I think he has a leadership and the understanding of the game to really elevate his team. And I think he has, like, he's one of the players that has like a good vengeance story. Like, he's one of the players that's probably coming out for blood, and I am excited to see what he does in a team that I call Cloud9.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 12, we have John Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies. So John Morant last year, he won Rookie of the Year over Zion Williamson and Kendrick Nunn. And John Morant pretty much wants to show everybody else that it wasn't a one-year thing, that he is a force to be reckoned with, especially as a franchise as Memphis that doesn't really have that much success. He wants to pretty much lead the team to the playoffs, or at least a play-in spot. And a lot of people are clamoring that he is a potential top 20 player in the NBA. We'll see how he does this season, especially with no bubble situation. But the way the schedule lines up, I think the Memphis Grizzlies can start off pretty strong, and they can become contenders for a playoff position. And it pretty much goes to show how good a franchise can be with drafting. Just because Zion's number 1, John Morant's number 2, your franchise can go from a bottom feeder all the way to a playoff contender. So that's why you have some teams like who are tanking or are trying to be like the worst team in the league. That way you can get a good draft pick later on. And if you get a player like John Morant in your team, you're good to go. You're set. And I just hope that and I'm hoping a lot for all these teams because I really want them all to do well. But I really hope that Memphis are fun to watch because I'm first and foremost a basketball fan, and I love seeing all these teams on television, and I don't want to see any boring basketball games at all.
Just for my own edification, when you say tank, what do you mean? Are these teams actually throwing the game, or are they just playing?
So some teams and coaches, they actually tank the game. So they start the worst players off the bench, or they do dumb plays. But some franchises legitimately just throw the games just so they can get a better draft pick, so they can get future all-stars and stuff like that. But yeah, it's kind of bad. That's why I want to see some good basketball.
Sounds hella shitty. Okay, so number 12 for me is Jose Dioto. So, like I keep saying, this is not a player tier list for me. This is the importance of this player to me is two things. Number one, he's the first Latin American player, along with newbie over at Golden Guardians joining. But the reason why this player I want to highlight him is because he went to the playing stage at Worlds, performed admirably, and now a major region picked him up. If this import works out, now he's gonna be with FlyQuest. Sorry, FlyQuest jungler, and he's gonna be playing with Licorice, which I mentioned earlier. If he performs well, it'll show that translating from the world playing stage to a major region is kind of transitive, and it will be important. It could be a motivator for teams to maybe look at minor regions for diamonds in the rough, and also it will be a big motivator for players to, even though they don't have a shot at winning or maybe getting out of the playing stage, but performing well, and it can show major region teams what they can bring to the table. So I think that's the importance of this player, Jose Dioto, joining the league.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 11, we have Zion Williamson. and pretty much a phenomenon since high school and during college. Last year was kind of a rough season for him because he was injured a lot or would be sit out during games. His team barely missed the playoffs by a couple games, and they have all the pieces there to be really, like I said, a really fun team. Zion and the former Lakers, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, JJ Redick, also from Duke. So all these, this is like a team like I like to follow a lot because it's like an alternate timeline for me as a Laker fan where the Lakers actually kept their young stars and see what happens if they don't get LeBron and see what happens if we do keep Lonzo, Brandon, and Josh Hart. But yeah, I hope the Pelicans are going to be a contender in the West, and that Zion plays as much games as he can, because I know they're trying to pretty much rest up his knee and ensure that he is doing okay, like long term wise, because that's pretty much their franchise cornerstone. That's the reason, again, alluding to the earlier on, why the New Orleans Pelicans franchise tanked to get the number one pick in order to draft a talent like Zion. So yeah, Zion is going to be really fun to watch. People are comparing him. I don't know. It's kind of too early to say this, but people are comparing him to like early LeBron, because of his raw skill and his strength. But we'll see.
Okay, number 11 for me. Honestly, I have to give a disclaimer. This player should have probably been like top 5 in this list. As I was kind of doing research, I really was gonna make him higher, but I had already turned in our kind of graphic to our producer, so I was like, oh, it's too late. So I'm just gonna keep as it is. But number 11, Santorin, Team Liquid, jungler. After last year's performance in FlyQuest, being an all-star jungler, he was considered probably the best number 1 or 2 jungler in the league. He was second place last year in both tournaments. He had the second highest KDA for jungler, highest kill participation for junglers, and also high kill participation in the whole league, and highest first blood in the whole league. So kill participation, if you understand that, is if that doesn't only just count kills, it also counts assists. So you understand what an assist is, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay. And first blood, do you know what a first blood is, kind of? Do you understand that?
I do not.
So first blood is the first kill of the game, pretty much. So if you're a jungler, your job is to like attack lanes, like I mentioned, right? So the fact that he had the highest first blood, participation in the league, highest kill participation in the league, just means that he's very involved with all the kills in this team. And he is being surrounded by a team of all-stars, Team Liquid, like I said, Alfar in the top lane, Santor in the jungle, Jensen in the mid lane, Tactical in the bot lane, and Core JJ in the support. All these players, top 1, top 2 in their role, maybe Tactical not, but I think I want to highlight him because this dude used to be with TSM back in the day, I think 2014, 2015. He played in like B-League, amateur tournaments, went back to Europe, came back to North America, played for FlyQuest, and he was kind of regarded as like a what the fuck pick. People were like, why would you pick him up again? And now he's back with one of the top contenders. Like, this guy is just, if honestly, like, this guy is an anime protagonist. Like, this guy that just not give up, just keeps going and going. And yeah, I mean, yeah. So that was Santorin, number 11 for me, aka Hot Guy with Six Pack. That was his username in the league client for a bit, but that's my number 11.
All right, so let's go to our top 10. Hopefully, our producer Eric has our top 10 players display up. Okay, so at number 10, we have my boy Russell Westbrook, aka Mr. Triple Double. So his success in Houston wasn't really a success. It was a one-year thing. The Rockets were a second round exit. And I guess Westbrook just wanted a fresh start, especially after his years in Oklahoma City and his failed year in Houston. He's now in Washington, D.C. with Bradley Beal, reunited with his old coach. And it's going to be really fun in the East for him just to see because Russell Westbrook he's a point guard, so he's gonna be the one facilitating the ball, driving towards the lane, driving towards the basket, because he's one of the top players in the league who does go for the basket and tries to get either fouled or try to score on those centers, get them in foul trouble. But yeah, it's gonna be what can you say about Russ? He's really controversial because people think he stat pads a lot, doesn't really win games. So he'll have all the best stats in the game, like he'll have like the most points, most assists, and the rebounds. But the reason he's doing that is because he's actively looking to like rebound the ball or to assist a player or to score points. And a lot of people in the media think he's like just padding his stats and his teams will win. He's not helping his teammates get better. He's only helping himself get better. But I think the Wizards will make the playoffs next year.
So number 10, top 10. So actually, so this guy, Hooney, what can I say about this guy, dude? Like, I think collectively, most fans think he's washed up. People say he's stealing a paycheck, and I don't want to say that. I'm not saying that because that's toxic. But last year, he led the league, and he was the bottom, KDA in the league. He did lead. He was, he was kind of good kill participation for his team. But what's so fascinating about this guy is, so he started out with Europe. He's Korean, but he played in Europe. Completely smurf. Won back-to-back splits. Went to Worlds. Plays top 3/4 at Worlds. Then he came to North America, and he did really well in the regular season. I think he went 17-1 in the regular season. Went to playoffs. Unfortunately, lost in the semifinals, and he didn't get to go to Worlds that year. But he did really well, and people were like, "Okay, this guy's still really good." He then goes to Korea. In Korea, he gets first place in Korea with his new team, SKT. Goes to Worlds, gets I think second at Worlds, and then he comes back to North America. Ever since he's been in North America, he has been gradually getting worse and worse. And I feel like this is his last chance. Like, if he doesn't do well this year, he's playing with TSM top lane. If he doesn't do well this year, I think this guy's done for. Like, I like him a lot. He's really charismatic, really funny. And when he's doing well, he's an absolute joy to watch. But I think he's just made, I don't know if he's been part of the roster decisions or he just got really unlucky, but the roster decisions he has made in the past have just been absolutely terrible. Like, the people he's picked to play with, he just either has to be really unlucky with the roster moves that happen around him, or he's actively part of those terrible roster moves. And we'll see. Like, this guy is supposed to be an all-star player, and I really think this is his last chance. I think if he is able to perform at his best, TSM can honestly probably be one of the top contenders. But I think the way of the team heavily weighs on him. And I mean, with a franchise as powerful as TSM and as historically victorious as TSM has been, I don't think pressure gets to him. But this is probably one of the higher pressure environments he's been a part of.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 9, we have Donovan Mitchell, shooting guard of the Utah Jazz. His teammate just got paid the big bucks recently. The guy who was spreading coronavirus through those microphones. Yeah, so his chemistry with Rudy really did fall after that incident, and now he's looking forward to pretty much getting over that and making the Utah Jazz a top 4 team in the West. A lot of people call Donovan Mitchell like a poor man's Dwayne Wade. And yeah, he's not going to be as good as Dwayne Wade, but he makes the Utah Jazz watchable, makes them fun. As a rookie, he led the team, upsetting the Clippers in his first playoff series. And just the Utah Jazz last year, they blew a 3-1 lead against the Denver Nuggets, and that was really unfortunate because they looked like they were easily going to win that series because Mitchell was scoring 40, 50 points in the playoffs. Like, whoa, what the heck? This guy's like one of the youngest players in the league. He's really like making the playoffs look like nothing. So what the Utah Jazz really need, though, is they need their home court environment back. Hopefully, after we all get our COVID vaccines and are all healthy to go, the Utah Jazz fans really want to go back to fill up that that stadium because it's really hard to play at Utah, especially in the elevation with those fans screaming and yelling at you. And Donovan Mitchell, he loves that home court environment. He wants to also get paid, and he's gonna put up MVP type numbers this season. I believe he will not win MVP, but he will finish in the top 5.
Okay, so number 9 for me is Power Evil over with TSM. He is led the league in kills, so most kills in the regular season. So there's a lot of things that can be said about this player. He has some weird builds, but this player has traditionally elevated his team. Like he really carries teams. Like he does a lot of work. But more than just him as a player, I think the role of mid-lane for TSM has been kind of a historical one. TSM has only had 2 mid-laners. Reggie, who was considered the best mid-laner at his time for TSM, and then Bjergsen, who just retired, considered the best mid-laner of his team at his prime. Even last year, he was probably contested number 1, number 2 in the whole league. And TSM has always kind of relied on their mid-laner being the best in the league. And if Power Evil can kind of become that, which is going to be really hard in a league with Jensen and Perks, which I'll talk about in a bit, TSM can honestly be another one of the dark horses that I talked about. TSM and 100 Thieves for sure are my dark horses to win the whole thing. But I think if Huni can play at his best and his bot lane can play at his best, I think Power Evil can get enough help to win a lot of games, but I just don't see it. But when I talk about this player specifically, I guess it's just interesting to follow how he's a third mid laner to play for TSM, and there's a lot of like pride that comes with that, and we'll see if he can continue the legacy of dominant mid laners for this team.
Okay, at number 8 we have Jason Tatum, forward from the Boston Celtics. So the Celtics, if in case anyone doesn't know, they're the Lakers' main rival. They have the same amount of championships as the Lakers. They both have 17. But the Celtics have fallen on short times. They have only won 1 championship in the last 34 years. So they're trying to pretty much one-up the rivals. And by doing so, they have signed Tatum to a 5-year, $195 million contract extension to their team, and I believe that he is worth that contract. It just in the regular season he does show up. He's an awesome player. He does score buckets, and just in the playoffs for some reason something gets in his head. He starts shrinking in the moment and pretty much deferring to his teammates or not making the shots. And we saw that last year a lot, where against the Miami Heat, the Celtics had a lot of leads against Miami. Tatum was seen as the leader of that team, and they just couldn't close it. They couldn't go to the NBA Finals. I really wanted to see a Lakers versus Celtics Finals, like old times again, like in the 80s, like in the 2000s. And it's up to Tatum. Tatum can take the Celtics all the way to the Finals if he wanted to. He apparently he did grow, I think, 2 inches over the off season, and he did get apparently better according to his. It just I don't know. We'll see. I personally think the Celtics are going to be overrated this season. They lost Hayward. They lost a bunch of their pieces from last season. They lost Kyrie 2 seasons ago. I mean, but yeah, I think Boston really messed up their opportunity to go to the finals last year, and they're going to be on the short end looking in this year.
I think it's interesting that he grew 2 inches over quarantine. I know that he can still grow. How old is this guy?
I don't know me either. He's like 21 years old, I think.
Okay, I guess he can still kind of grow, but 2 inches? Holy shit.
Yeah.
Must be nice to have good genes.
Yeah.
Short king right here. Anyways, number 8, Fudge. So Fudge is an Oceanic player that performed well at the 2019 play-in stage at Worlds. So just like Jose Diodo that I mentioned earlier. Oh, by the way, sorry, he's going to be a top lane for Cloud9. So he played at the playing stage for a Oceania team, did well. They brought him over to North America. He played in academy. He led in CS differential at 10 minutes. So a CS is creep score, which means you're farming better than your opponent. And he was second for KDA for top laners in academy, so the B League. And just like Jose Dioto, like I said, he did well, brought him over, and hopefully he can translate some of the success that he's shown internationally, academy, to the main stage. I think, for me, Cloud9, if they had kept Licorice, which I talked about earlier, I would easily put them at number one. I would feel more conflicted about who to put number one. But because Fudge is such a big question mark for me, I don't feel comfortable giving them the number one spot over Team Liquid. And I think a lot of it is going to rely on Fudge being able to not only hold his own, but perform better than some of these, all-star top laners, like I mentioned Licorice, and I'm going to talk about some other ones later, like Alfari and Someday. But I think the success of Cloud9 is kind of up in the air for me, and it's mostly based around this player. And hopefully, he can pop off. I think I really wanted to. I don't want it to be a one-team league with Team Liquid just stomping over everyone. I would love to see Cloud9 do well, and I really think it's up to him.
All right, number 7, I have Devin Booker from the Phoenix Suns. Devin Booker, a.k.a. what Drake would call him, wet like I'm Book, because he is wet from the three-point line. He is a shooting guard from the Phoenix Suns, like I said. And like I said the previous podcast, I guarantee that the Phoenix Suns were going to go to the playoffs. We're going to be a top 6 seed. And it's because of this man right here, Devin Booker. He's going to have a breakout season. He's going to show everybody that Phoenix is a force to be reckoned with. I saw both Phoenix preseason games against the Lakers. Again, it was preseason, but they did go toe-to-toe against us, and they were really, really scary. And they were not a walkover like they were in previous years. Phoenix does look like contenders. Devin Booker is going to be a force within the league. People always are not intimidated by him just because of the way he looks, but he's a babyface assassin, similar to Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. He is going to shoot the lights out of the arena. If you give him an inch or two of space, he's going to make a three-pointer over you. Yeah, it's going to be really fun. Again, I'm glad that the league is actually watchable now, because in previous years, you would have like one or two teams that were actually like fun to watch. Now we have like a bunch of teams that have like a star player to keep an eye on, and especially with this guy, his immense talent of three-point shooting, it's going to be exciting to watch. And clip it again, the Phoenix Suns will make the playoffs because of Devin Booker.
All right, I'll take your word on that. So number 7, I'm putting Blaver. So Blaver is now the longest standing member of Cloud9, which is crazy when people kind of still think of him as a rookie. But he's longest standing member of Cloud9 now. Cloud9 last year lived and died by him. He had to pick one of his champions, Olaf. When he was not a champion, completely run over the game. When that champion would be banned or taken away, he was like a completely different player. So he's a highly mechanical player who people meme that he doesn't use his brain that much. And last year he led the league in highest goal differential at 10 minutes and the highest XP differential at 10 minutes across all positions. So as you can tell, a very dominant player. But I think if he becomes a more three-dimensional jungler where he doesn't just have to carry junglers, he's going to have Perks in the melee now, who's a player who can carry. If he can play a more supportive style, or maybe Perks decides he wants to support him and maybe elevate him to a new level with this carry jungler style. But I think he's just a player to watch. Like I said, very dominant player, and last year Cloud9 was dominance heavily relied on him. So if all goes well and Blabber can pop off and be a asset for Perks, Cloud9 can hopefully become because like I said, I really think Team Liquid's going to win it all. I think they're just stacked with talent. But if Blabber can play well, if Fudge can play well, Cloud9 can be the runner-up and potentially maybe even the winner of it all. So that's Blabber number 7 for me.
All right, number 6. Yeah, a very controversial pick. We have Paul George, shooting guard of the Los Angeles Clippers. Paul George, aka Pandemic P, because his playoff performance during the postseason was abysmal. Last time we saw Paul George, his team was up 3-1 again on the Denver Nuggets. Typically, when you're up 3-1, you pretty much advance. And no, his team blew a 3-1 lead in that series. And most notably, when Roberto and I are playing pickup basketball and we're shooting 3-point shots, usually our shots hit the backboard and hit out of bounds. Well, that's the way this guy was shooting in the playoffs last year. This shot literally hit the backboard and hit out of bounds. Didn't even touch the rim. This guy was terrible in the playoffs. Oh my gosh! And as a Laker fan, I was so happy to see the Clippers fail because they were so overhyped and freaking. Oh, it was so annoying. And he just signed a $190 million contract extension for 4 years. I don't know what the Clippers are thinking. Sign this guy for so much money, and oh man, I don't know. Their team, I think they got worse. I think his teammate Kawhi is gonna bounce after this season, and it's gonna be so fun because tomorrow night that's when the Clippers are gonna be playing the Lakers for the first game of the season. The Lakers are gonna be receiving their championship rings against the Clippers, and it's gonna be so satisfying to watch for me. Oh yeah. So yeah, Paul George, he wants, I guess, revenge for blowing that 3-1 lead. He wants to take the Clippers to their first ever NBA Finals, along with Kawhi. And I'll just go as far as he can go, because Kawhi cannot do everything. He needs Paul George to at least make contact with the rim in order to advance to at least a Western Conference.
That's funny. Okay, number 6, 100 Thieves, someday top lane. So he's the longest staying player on the 100 Thieves roster, and he's getting joined by 4/5 of the former Golden Guardians roster, which I've mentioned before as being the top 4/5 best team in the league. He's a huge upgrade in the top lane. He's one of the best players in the whole league, mechanically speaking. And I feel bad for him because ever since he joined 100 Thieves has promised them success. And they have kind of found it, but never to a satisfying degree. The first year 100 Thieves was formed back in 2018, they were able to go to Worlds, but due to some drama, they were playing with substitute players because the players could not get along well enough, and they had an embarrassing showing at Worlds. And he has not been given the tools to succeed. And this is the first year since 2018, which hasn't been that long ago, I guess. But this is after the disappointing years of 2019, 2020 were for him. This is the first time he kind of has the tools to work with. And if they're able to click, and if him and Closer can kind of figure out how to share the goal properly, or if they can play to each other's strengths, I think, like I said, like I keep saying, 100 Thieves is going to be my dark horse to win it all. And yeah, he was number 3 at goal difference at 10 minutes across all roles. And if he can keep up this performance, I think he is going to be a threat this year.
Okay, number 5, we have the man from the Denver Nuggets, point guard Jamal Murray. So these next 4 players I will be talking about, they are all point guards. So this goes to show how important that position is going to factor into this season. So let's start off with Jamal Murray. So Jamal Murray, Denver Nuggets last postseason, they were down 3-1 against the Utah Jazz. They won that series. They were down 3-1 against the LA Clippers. They won that series. And they were down 3-1 against the LA Lakers. They lost that series. But it just goes to show he went toe-to-toe against the best players possible. He went toe-to-toe against Donovan Mitchell, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and he gave us hell. This guy is incredible. Oh my God. I admit, I used to hate this guy back when we had Lonzo as our player. because he was actually a better version of Lonzo, and I thought damn, I wish we had Jamal Murray. And his game really flourished a lot during the playoffs. He was scoring 40, 50 points, and oh my god, every time he had the ball, he would shoot a 3-pointer. It would just go in. And the Nuggets are really scary, man. In the playoffs, him and Jokic form a duo that is, I think, the second best duo in the league. It's so unstoppable. And again, their home court advantage because they're in Denver. They play in elevation, so hard in the altitude to play, especially with players who have trouble with breathing and oxygen issues. And I think Jamal Murray, he can make a step up and show that his playoff performance wasn't also a fluke, and to ensure that his team will be a top 4 seed in the West. Because if the Clippers do fail, if the Mavericks don't get the help of Kristaps, the Denver Nuggets can be a top 2 seed in the West, just alone with Jamal and Jokic. So count on that.
Okay, for me, number 5, Alfari. He was arguably the number 1/number 2 top lane player in Europe. He's gonna be playing for Team Liquid. The reason why he's kind of important to watch, I think, by the way, as we get to the top 5, this is gonna become more of a, I would say, skill/team importance, no longer as much narrative driven for me. And like I mentioned before, you could be a good player in a bad team and get picked up by a better team later. And he's a prime example of that. He used to play with this team called, what's the name of it? Origin over in Europe. And they were 10th place, 10 out of 10. And dude got picked up by this all-star team with Team Liquid, Santorin, Jensen, Core JJ, Tactical. And people, even though he was in the 10th team in the league, he was still revered as one of the number 1 or 2 in the whole league. Even other top laners mentioned he was just that much better than everyone else. So hopefully he can translate that, elevate the region by bringing his talent over. And we'll see. I think he is the scariest addition that they added to Team Liquid. He can play tanks, and he can also play hard carry champions. And after playing with a player such as Impact, who is kind of a tank-only player, I hope that Team Liquid can kind of become a better rounded team and just kind of elevate the league as a whole.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 4, we have another point guard from the Golden State Warriors. A man not that many people know about, actually. This guy's name is Steph Curry, aka this guy is gonna break the all-time point 3-point shots made by this year or even next year. Well, because this year might be shortened. But yeah, he is already number 3 all-time in NBA 3-pointers made in his 12th season, and he is just like 20 3-pointers away from being number 2. So at his young age already, I think he just entered his 30s. He's already going to eclipse and surpass the all-time 3-point shooting mark of all time, and just incredible to see just the way the league has evolved throughout the past couple of years. Steph Curry last year, he was injured. He only played around 6 games, which is why the Warriors had the worst record in the league last year. This year, however, Steph Curry is healthy. Draymond Green is healthy. They did add a rookie, James Wiseman. We'll see how he fits into their system. However, Steph doesn't have his running mate and Klay Thompson with him, and it's gonna be sad just because I thought the Warriors were gonna be the Lakers' main competition this year. And unfortunately now, the Warriors are going to be like a barely playoff fringe type of team. But Steph Curry will be extremely fun to watch. He'll probably break the record sometime either late this year or early next season. And it's going to be really fun to watch because, again, the 2 players ahead of him in all-time 3-point shooting are Ray Allen and Reggie Miller. And those 2 legends were known for the 3-point shooting. And now Steph Curry pulls up from half court from the logo and just makes it in. It's like what are they feeding these players nowadays? Like they can just shoot from 3-point from anywhere. I could only make that shot where 1 out of 100 times, and this guy makes it look like so easy. So yeah, Steph Curry, we'll see how far he can take the Warriors into the playoffs positions, but he's my number 4 player to watch.
My number 4 player to watch is Jensen over at the mid lane. So with Bjergsen's retirement, I think a lot of people assumed that he would be the best mid laner in the league, in the region. But then Perks came over, and I'll talk about him later. And he is one of the up until a couple years ago, he was like one of the really good players that never have won anything. And then he did what people called Kevin Durant move, I think, where he joined a team of all-stars, and he finally won, and people kind of clowned on him.
Diminished him, yeah.
Yeah. And then last year he didn't win, and now the Double Lift has people kind of joked that he only joined Team Liquid, and the Double Lift carried him to a championship. And he last year he led the league as number 2 in goal differential for the whole league at 10 minutes. So he's very good at getting goal for himself. And what I think is going to be important to watch is, I think if he is able to neutralize Perks, Cloud9 has no shot at winning against Team Liquid, because I think head-to-head, Team Liquid just has better players all around, and the only person that can maybe have an edge over Team Liquid is Perks, which I'll talk about in a bit. And I mean, we'll see. This guy is really fun to watch, very aggressive. He is probably one of the longest standing players in North America at this point, and one of the few players in North America to have some international success with North America by being getting to semifinals at Worlds and also placing second at the Mid-Season Invitational, which is the other international tournament that League of Legends holds. So we'll see. I think this is a great year for him to be able to kind of step up and show that he didn't need Double Lift to win. And I mean, he's in a team with all-stars. This guy has no excuses. If this guy's playing his best, and not even his best, if this team can play at like an 80% performance, I think that's good enough to compete in the international stage, which is why this team is actually scared for the first time. Because in the past, we needed players to be at their 100% to be able to even compete. But this team actually has so much threats, and Jensen is one of them. And I am excited to see him play. I think he's really fun to watch, and we'll see how he heads head-to-head against Perks.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 3, we have another point guard from the Portland Trail Blazers. His name is Damian Lillard. And Damian Lillard, in the bubble, turned into Superman. He averaged 38 points, 10 assists in the bubble, led the team from a pretty much near to last place position all the way into the playoffs, and took a game off the Lakers in the first round. And this guy, if he has a healthy roster with McCollum and his counter, Robert Covington, they are really scary to watch because they have the 3-point shooting, they have a good coach, a good system in place, and each player knows their defined roles. And Lillard, again, he's one of those players like a Jimmy Butler, like a Kobe Bryant, where he doesn't take no for an answer, where he is determined to will his team into a position of greatness. And we saw that last year when in the bubble where Lillard, everyone wrote his team off, like all the Blazers, they're like the worst team, they have no defense. He ensured that this team would make the playoffs and put this team on his back just by shooting three-pointers and assisting the ball. And again, he was pulling a Steph Curry, shooting from midcourt, and his team has the potential to be a top 4 seed in the West.
So my number 3 player is going to be Sword Art, who is coming over from a fresh success at Worlds. He got second place at Worlds with Sunning Esports. Sorry, I forgot the name of it for a second. The estimate is around a $4 million dollar purchase for this player. I think what's interesting about this player is he is kind of like the big piece TSM brought over with Bjergsen and Double Lift's retirement, because they lost. Not only did the league lose the 2 biggest players of all time for North America, TSM lost the 2 biggest players of all time. Like, they were both in the same roster. And Sword Art is their answer for that. And hopefully, I think TSM's success relies heavily on him. He has really good English, to my understanding. He's a veteran player who's found success with various different teams. And the only aspect that I want to bring up about this player is so he's a support, and TSM historically, every time they bring over a support, a hot shot support or a shot caller support or an also support, it seems like they're cursed. Like back in the day with Yellow Star, they brought over a what people consider the best support in Europe. They bring him over, they don't do well in the regular season. They get second place in the playoffs, but people still consider that a failure, and they single that support out as the worst part of the team. I think the next All-Star support they brought was Mithy from Europe, and they also failed with him, finishing one of the worst at playoffs. I think getting knocked out in the quarterfinals for the first time ever. And this is their third attempt at an All-Star support, and we'll see. The pieces have changed. There's a lot of support stuff now that can maybe help this team get to victory. But I think TSM's legacy and success rests on the shoulders of Sword Art. I would say specifically, I think the team success will come from him and his playmaking.
Okay, number 2, we have point guard from the Philadelphia 76ers, Ben Simmons, really highly acclaimed rookie from his draft class. And just to say about this player, I think he is untradeable. I don't know why the Philadelphia 76ers want even open those trade talks with the Houston Rockets to get James Harden. I think Ben Simmons is going to be one of the Philadelphia 76ers all-time cornerstones. Just the way that he passes the ball, sets up his teammates pretty well. The thing about him, though, is he doesn't shoot any three-pointers. There was a meme going on last year where he shot his first three-point shot of his career. People are freaking out, like, oh my God, his first three-pointer. I don't know. This is a league where everybody shoots threes, even like 7-footers, even those fat centers, even those guys shoot three-pointers. And Ben Simmons, I don't know why he's so afraid of shooting three-pointers, because he's supposed to be like a point guards usually are the ones who shoot the three-pointers, and he doesn't shoot them. And if he does shoot them, his game becomes unstoppable because, oh man, there's a reason why the Philadelphia 76ers are going to be finals contenders. He, along with Joel Embiid, and with the new additions of Danny Green and Dwight Howard, both from the Lakers, they're going to bring the championship pedigree into Philadelphia, injected into their youth, injected into their system. And I want the Philadelphia 76ers to do, because their fan base, they're really passionate about their sports. We see it throughout football, through basketball, through baseball. Those fans expect the best out of their teams. And if the Sixers do trade for James Harden, it will only weaken their team. They will not get better. We saw how James Harden got motivated, how he's currently motivated right now with Houston. Do you think he's going to be that motivated when he goes to Philadelphia once he gets his way? You do not trade a young player like Ben Simmons to Houston for a fat, bearded man like James Harden. You keep Ben Simmons. If anything, you trade away Joel Embiid, but you do not trade Ben Simmons, because Ben Simmons will haunt you if you trade him. So if you're a Philadelphia executive, you should get fired if you trade Ben Simmons.
Okay. Number 2, we have Core JJ, who has been kind of up until this year, he was kind of referred as the best player North America had at the moment. Originally from Korea, support for Team Liquid. He's a former world champion. I think also second place finish at one year. I think why he's interesting to watch, and he's probably like up there with Perks as the most important player in the region. This offseason, he's been organizing in-houses to kind of have more serious practice with the pro players just to elevate the region. And I think that speaks volumes of him as an import. I think a lot of times people think of imports as players that come here to go on vacation and kind of just like call it quits and go to LA, live the LA lifestyle, get, party, beach, girls, food. But this player, he's very serious about the game. He really wants to win. And I think with the additional pieces that I mentioned earlier with Alfari, Santorin, and with the returning pieces of Jensen and Tactical, I think Court, like I am actually excited. I hope I don't get my dreams and hopes crushed. I think Team Liquid can compete internationally, and if they just with the raw talent, it's we have to wait to see if it clicks. But Team Liquid has a great coaching staff, sports psychologists, people on stack. I meant to say that was a combination of staff and on deck, ready to aid the team in any help they need. And I think Core JJ is just a player to watch. I think if he is anywhere remotely close to what he's shown us the past couple of years, his team is to be feared. Only reason why he's not number one is because I would say he's probably not as important to Perks, just because of the additional pieces he has in his team. But that's my number 2 pick, Core JJ, support Team Liquid.
All right, my number 1 player. Again, this list wasn't based off top 20 NBA players on here, because otherwise I would have had LeBron or Giannis or Kawhi on here. But number 1 player to keep an eye on this season will be Anthony Davis, power forward / center for the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers and their history, they're known for their dominant big men, all the way from going back to Wilt Chamberlain in the 1970s, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the 80s, Shaquille O'Neal in the 2000s, Paul Gasol in the 2010s, and now we have Anthony. This man just signed a 5-year, $190 million contract extension with the Los Angeles Lakers. He wants to stay in LA. He wants to be a Laker. There's a reason why he wanted to leave New Orleans. He traded into the Lakers. He wanted that LA spotlight. He wanted to be a Laker, be in those situations where the spotlight, the media is always centered on him. He just came off his first championship this past October with LeBron, with the Lakers, and throughout this season, you will see the Lakers pretty much load manage or rest up their players to get ready for the playoffs, especially with LeBron. This is his 18th year in the season, so LeBron will not necessarily have an MVP type of campaign. The player that I believe will have an MVP type of campaign, who will establish himself as the best player on the Lakers over LeBron James, will be Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, he lost Defensive Player of the Year to Giannis. He's going to be motivated even better than ever to step up his defensive game. Already, he's an all-time defensive player. We saw how he shut down the bigs in last year's NBA playoffs. He just, every time you go to the basket, he's just going to swallow you up, block any shot, and just demoralize your team. And now he even added, he facilitates the ball now. He's adding some passing skills. He can shoot 3-pointers like pretty much like any other point guard can. He's like a point guard and a center's body, and it's gonna be, what the heck? It's gonna be so incredible to watch how he does this season. This might be the most hype I've ever been about a player. That's why I bought his jersey earlier. He has to stay healthy, man. He has to stay healthy, and I want him to win MVP so bad. But I know that his goal and the Lakers' goal in totality is to defend their title as NBA champions. And he pretty much last year he led the Lakers in all of their statistics. He besides assists, I believe. Yeah, so Anthony Davis had more points than LeBron, more rebounds than LeBron, more block shots, more steals. So he already is establishing himself as the number 1 player in the team, and it just goes to show, if he gets that confidence up, that he knows that he can do it. And LeBron's even pushing him to be like, hey man, you're the number 1 player now. I can take a back seat to you. I'll be the point guard. This is your team now. And it's pretty much his job to claim. So Anthony Davis, he can be the best player in the league, best player on the Lakers. He got all these tools throughout the offseason. Those 3-point shots, the off the dribble. Oh man, it's gonna be incredible. And that's why Anthony Davis is my number 1 player to watch this season.
Well, my number one player to watch this season for me is Perks over at Cloud9, mid lane position. He is honestly he is the best player of all time for the West regions, which is North America and Europe, pretty much. His success follows him. This dude has won 8 titles in Europe. He has won one international tournament over at the MSI Invitational. He has placed second at Worlds. He has been in the semifinals 2 years. This guy has found success with various different teams and various different levels of skill. I am here wondering if he can elevate the region, if he can find success for North America. And I think the other thing to watch out for is with Double F and Bjergsen retiring and me mentioning how famous they are, I think there's going to be a vacuum for all these fans, and I think he's set up to take them all. I think he's a very charismatic and fun player to watch. And if he's able to find success, this guy is like set up to take over North America as like North America's face. And I am excited to watch him play. I think mostly because I think Cloud9's success is going to rely heavily on him and his leadership. I know we talked earlier about leaders, and there's not really many natural leaders, but if there's a player that's a natural leader in the whole league, it's him. Like Perks is just an insane player. For me as a North American fan, I am excited to hopefully be able to find some success. I am tired of being stepped on by every other region, European fans, Korean fans, Chinese fans, just talking shit to us every year, telling us we suck, telling us to go to sleep. And I just can't wait. I'm hopeful that this player can step up and bring success. And it's so funny, in his introduction video, he was talking about how he wants to make America great. And he's like, I don't want to make America great again because you guys were never great. Like, your region always sucked. I want to make America great at all. And this guy is so cocky. This guy is so insane. He was mid lane for the longest time, for like 4 or 5 years. He switched lanes. I think I mentioned this in the last episode. He switched lanes to be able to invite his rival over so they could team up and do well at Worlds. They got second place. Unfortunately, came a little short. They kind of choked at the end. And I mean, this guy's insane. He was joking. I mentioned Fudge, like, hopefully being able to hold his own. In this intro video, he was like, hey, Fudge, if you suck, I can play top lane too, dude. You better not suck. Like, this guy is just so much fun to watch. And I hope he's like my number one player to watch. I'm excited because I think Cloud9 has a good culture, and I think he'll be a perfect fit for that team. So that pretty much wraps up our top 20 players list for both the NBA and league. I don't know if you have any closing thoughts, Carlos. I mean, I think we said a lot.
Yeah, pretty much you'll be able to see at least 10 of these players on Christmas Day. There's 5 games going on throughout the day. So pretty much any player that I talked about today will be one of the main players to watch throughout the game. So yeah, hopefully you guys tune in during Christmas.
Yeah, I'll probably tune into tomorrow's LA Clippers game. Probably. I mean, I'll see if I have time. I think I have time, but if I can watch it, so yeah, we're recording this on Monday. But I'm gonna try to watch some NBA games, hopefully, because I do want to be able to kind of follow Anthony Davis. That's a name that I gotta remember. Anthony Davis. Davis. Anyways, if you have nothing else to add, Carlos, we're gonna wrap it up here. I don't know if this will be the last episode of the year, but I just want to thank anyone that's taking the time to watch our video or podcast, even listen. We're still working on some stuff, some upgrades. Our producer Eric's working behind the scenes, doing great advances. We really fucking appreciate you, dude. And Carlos, thanks for being a great host. I want to say Merry Christmas to everyone. And I just hope everyone has a great, safe holiday.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Stay safe. Make sure you guys stay safe. Be positive. Test negative. And enjoy your holidays.
Any word from a producer? You want to say anything, Eric? Or are you good?
Oh, yeah. Thank you guys for your kind words. And happy holidays to everyone. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for notifications.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram too.